make it anymore. No, they didn't do that. And so, even though they changed their names, they couldn't change what was in their hearts. They couldn't change their commitment to God. Hallelujah. You know, some people blame everybody for what they are going through. They blame their parents. They blame the government. They blame the system. They blame the boss. They blame everybody but themselves. But you know, I say this. Don't look to place blame. Look to see what you can accomplish in spite of what you are going through. And so these boys didn't feel sorry for themselves. They were determined to succeed and to accomplish God's plans and purposes in their lives. And so the king assigned special food for them from their table. You know, back in those days, those kings, they would have people preparing all kinds of foods and bring it to the table so that the same kind of foods that the king would eat, they would take portions from the king's table and take it to these young men. So it was not a second-class type of food. It was the same food that the king was eating. These young men would have that same food. For 3 years, they would have the food and they would have the wine. But in all cases, those foods were offered first to idols. See? And that's the reason why Daniel and his friends did not want to eat the king's meat. Because it was first, they knew it was first offered to idols. Because if we go back in same chapter, in verse 3, you would notice when the king got these articles, he placed them in the treasure house of his God, common God, so that they would always offer these, the foods to their gods. You know, I know of some people, what they do, if they're having a feast or something like that, what they would do, they would take out the first set of food and they would offer it to their gods. And then they would distribute to the other people. And that's why in the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, I believe it is chapter 8, the apostle talks about eating food offered to idols. We're not going to deal with that tonight, but Daniel and his friends did not want to eat from the king's table because what was from the king's table, though it was good food, was first of all offered to idols. So Daniel asked the officials, look, would you spare us from having to defile ourselves with this? Just give us vegetables and water. Of course, the official felt, look, you're going to put me in trouble. Because what if the king finds that you are not looking good enough? He's going to blame me. He's going to think I am taking the food and selling it. And you are starving. And so Daniel said, look, give us 10 days. Just give us vegetables and water. Just put us on a vegan diet for 10 days. And so he said, okay, God gave Daniel favor. And so for 10 days, that's all they ate, just vegetables and drank water. At the end of 10 days, you know what happened? He found Daniel and his friends. They were looking more handsome, more nourished, and healthy. I mean, their eyes were just clear. Their face was just Everything was nice. And so the official said, well, all right, we're not going to give you the king's rations anymore. You just feed on your vegetables and your water. And so, let's drop down to verse 11, verse 17. Okay, at the end of 10 days, then here, these 4 young men. Right, listen to this. It says, these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding in all kinds of literature. Evidently, not only Babylonian literature, but all other kinds of literature. It says, so the time came for the king to question them. So they brought them before Nebuchadnezzar, the king. He presented them. The king talked with them. And I want you to notice this. The king talked with them, and he found none in his realm equal to those 4 young men. As a matter of fact, I like this. It's verse 20. It says, in every, not just some, but in every matter of wisdom, every matter of wisdom and understanding, about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better. Think about it. 10 times better. So let's say everybody get 10% in the test. Those guys were acing it 100%. When they're getting A+, all the other guys getting a F. They were at the top of the class. He found them 10 times better. They were young, they were godly, they were committed to God, and they were brilliant. You can be committed to God and go to the head of the class at the same time. We don't have to be scraping the bottom of the barrel as believers. God has promised you'll be the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. And that was the case with these 4 young men. Think about it. They came from a foreign land. They brought them as captives in a foreign land. They changed their names, but that didn't stop God from endowing them with wisdom. Folk, let me say this. Don't let your circumstances keep you back. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Wherever God places you in the world, you can get ahead, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Many people make excuses. They figure, look, I can't make it because of this, because of that, because of the other. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Here it is. God was able to use these young men because they were committed to him. Okay, so we're going to open up for questions and discussion. Those of you viewing on the internet, God bless you. It's been a pleasure having you. See you next week. Okay, so let me get down to you here.